In the headline, Ethiopian government to reconsider unilateral ceasefire as TPLF continues attacks. Hello, this is Addis News. I'm Solomon Danyi. Thanks for joining me. Ministry of Foreign Affairs says Ethiopia will be forced to reconsider its unilateral ceasefire decision as terrorist TPLF intensifies retaliatory attack on innocent civilians. Foreign Affairs State Minister Redwan Hussein also criticized the international community and some humanitarian operators for their partisan view to TPLF despite evident provocatives. Gushumelis has more.
The international community has been requesting for the ceasefire and unfettered humanitarian access in Tigray since the law enforcement operation began last November. Following this, the government of Ethiopia has decided unilateral ceasefire and withdrew its troops from Tigray. Ministry of Foreign Affairs State Minister Redwan Hussein in his televised statement said humanitarian operators have been retreating to access aid without checking points and security guard.
Various external forces have been accusing Ethiopia uses famine as weapon. They have been also reiterating for ceasefire for humanitarian access and farmers to undertake agricultural activities. Humanitarian actors also asked to access aid without checking points and security. In response to their request and concern, the government decided quickly a ceasefire. We expect the decision was timely for their concern and well-being of the people, but the international community denounced a ceasefire and did not give much emphasis.
Following the withdrawal of Ethiopian troops from Tigray, terrorist TPLF provoked war on the Amhara border, but no international community condemned it. Redwan stressed that Ethiopia will be forced to reconsider its unilateral decision as terrorist TPLF failed to respect the ceasefire.
ውሳኔውን ገና እንደተወሰነ ለማጣጣል ለማሳነስና ለማንኳሰስ ሲሽቀዳደሙ ታይተዋል። የምዕራባውያን ሚዲያዎችም ይሁኑ አንዳንድ የምዕራቡ ሀገር ባለስልጣናት በተናጠል
The government declared ceasefire and withdrew its troops and prioritizing humanity and the people to get relief. All these sacrifices have been paid to ensure peace and stability. Still, the government passes their provocation act in long-lasting patience. If the provocation continues, the government will be forced to revise its unilateral ceasefire and take robust action very soon. If there is any international body concerned about, a call to stand with Ethiopia and debunk condemn.
በእርግጥም ኢትዮጵያ ስትቸገር እኛም እንቸገራለን ብሎ የሚያስብ የዓለም ማህበረሰብ አካል በሌላኛው ወገን የሚደረገውን ትንኮሳ እንዲኮንን እንዲያጋልጥ እንዲያስቆም መንግስት ጥሪውን ያቀርባል።
State Minister Redwan also reproached the international community and some humanitarian operators' partisan view for TPLF despite evident provocations.
በተለይም የሰብአዊ እርዳታ እናቀርባለን ወይም እናስተባብራለን የሚሉ አንዳንድ አካላት
While it was vivid to note the crime of recruiting and the use of children soldiers by the other side, the international media and some entities who were accusing and chastising the government have lent deaf ear to the heinous crime which has been denounced by everyone. Some Western media outlets have even inclined to give it a positive shape, claiming that they are using it for military balance. TPLF's repeated provocations against the Amhara and the Afar regions were not condemned for overshadowing the purpose of the ceasefire.
ያለ በራት አግዷል ማለት በተለይ በአፋርና በአማራ በትግራይ ደቡብ ክልል አካባቢ ላይ እህል መግባት የሚቻልበት እርዳታ ማሳለፍ የሚቻልበት ምቹ ሁኔታ ተፈጥሮ
He called upon the international community to criticize belligerent acts of the fugitive group and support Ethiopia.
የዓለም ማህበረሰብ አካል
Ethiopian states previously untouched by the war in Tigray confirmed Thursday they were deploying forces to back military operations in the Amhara-Tigray border areas. The reinforcements are coming from Oromia, Ethiopia's largest state, as well as the Sidama and the southern nations, nationalities and peoples, and Somali states. In statements issued by the states, it was indicated that repulsing the aggression waged by the terrorist TPLF on the territorial integrity of Ethiopia should not be left to the Amhara Special Forces and militia. The statements indicated that the war of aggression by the TPLF is meant to dismantle the unity of the country and create chaos. The mobilization follows Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's warning Wednesday that his forces would repel any attacks by its enemies, effectively tearing up a government-declared ceasefire on June 28. On Thursday, Oromia and Sidama regional special forces have moved towards the front line. The Sidama special forces have arrived at the front line, ETV learned. Similarly, the Southern Nations Nationalities and People's State and Gambella forces had arrived as well. Ethiopia has voiced its complaints against what it calls blatant conspiracy of silence by the international community as TPLF continues to endanger the lives of refugees and millions in the war-torn Tigray, while TPLF recruits child soldiers and enlists elders and women to war fronts in utter disregard of international law as well as the recently declared unilateral ceasefire. The international community cooperates with the TPLF by conveniently ignoring this. Meanwhile, most Western media outlets are blowing the situation in northern Ethiopia out of proportions by misleading reports of an ethnic clash between Tigrayans and the Amhara. In the following reporting, Kasanjane takes us through some of these reports.
All through the 8-month-long law enforcement operation in Tigray, the TPLF kept laminating that Addis Ababa had been using starvation as a weapon of war. However, when the federal government declared the unilateral humanitarian ceasefire, the TPLF quickly forgot the famine accusations and intensified its military activities. The international community has also been showing inconsistency on a grand scale. Soon after Ethiopia withdrew its forces from Tigray, the international community has only been ranting about restoration of satellite, telecom and internet in Tigray, while turning a blind eye to the TPLF's recruitment of child soldiers. They even tend to point fingers at Addis Ababa, while the TPLF is turning humanitarian corridors into centers of military conflicts in broad daylight. Lately, they have come up with these gloomy reports of intensified fighting between ethnic Tigrayan soldiers and Amhara militiamen. While these media outlets have opted to under-report statement from the Ministry of Defense and Foreign Affairs, they were quick to pick a call to arms by the Communications Bureau of the state of Amhara. The media outlets deliberately distorted Ethiopia's withdrawal from several places in Tigray, reporting it as a military defeat by the advancing TDF. These are reflections of how biased and one-sided the international community has chosen to remain.
The United States government, especially some people within the State Department, are using the Tigray issue in general and the TPLF issue in particular to pressurize the Ethiopian government. This is what we have to recognize. You see, otherwise, when the United States labeled Al-Shabaab and ISIS as terrorist organizations, Ethiopia was immediately on board, calling these organizations terrorists. And now the Ethiopian government, a credible, legitimate government of Ethiopia, in its House of Representatives, has already declared the TPLF as a terrorist organization. In fact, America should have a moral responsibility of recognizing this. They call it Tigray Defense Forces, and they go beyond, mind you, even in their presentation last time, the spokesperson of the State Department demanded, specifically placed the demand the TPLF has already placed about the Western areas of Tigray, like Workite, Humara, and this one, and Raya. You see, they were insisting that the Ethiopian government should respect the constitution and the border lines within Ethiopia. It's just funny because it is like, for instance, Ethiopia discussing the border between Arizona and Texas.
Instead of reporting Ethiopia's good intentions to give a chance to the people of Tigray on recent developments and make their minds up, the Western media have only been picking Bill Croy's statements from here and there, thus helping the TPLF's combative stance. So far, not a word has been sent to the TPLF by way of warning it to refrain from Air's hostile tendencies and sheer contempt for Addis Ababa's peace initiatives. For instance, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has indicated that the TPLF was launching offensives, urging people to stand by the defense forces to maintain Ethiopia's peace. However, in her latest tweet so far, United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, called on all parties to the conflict to immediately agree to a negotiated ceasefire and political dialogue. This is a clear indication of the United States' proclivity towards the TPLF.
Chair of the National Electoral Board of Ethiopia, Birtukan Mideksa, said the 6th general election went smoothly irrespective of few irregularities in the process. Briefing various diplomatic communities here yesterday, the board chair branded this round of election a historic for being conducted amid complicated situations in the country. Alola Teklamaram reports.
Ethiopia conducted its 6th general election on June 21st for seats of House of People's Representative and Regional Cities Council. The election process was accompanied by a large number of voters' registration with 52 political parties and over 670 constituency offices. The government of Ethiopia allocated more than $9 million and of course, different international development partners like the UNDP and the USAID funded the process. The National Election Board of Ethiopia thus disclosed results of the 6th general election last week. Accordingly, the ruling Prosperity Party was declared the winner of the election. Briefing various diplomatic communities Thursday, Chair of the Election Board, Birtukan Mideksa, highlighted the entire process of the election.
Those operational changes, legal changes and procedural changes we introduced, it boosted transparency, it boosted accountability. With that we wanted to have as an institution. Of course, we learned a lot from the process as well. Everything was not such positive. And the other thing, we achieved in this process is, the participation level, especially the participation of civil society in this general election is unprecedented, I could say.
Birtukan also cited some of the challenges and success stories of the election.
The other political dynamics in the country brought so many challenges, including security problems, political fragmentation, and that kind of serious problem which affects the electoral process, as I can say. There was an issue of being, lack of experience, lack of capacity in our poll workers, skill set. That was a challenge, I can say. But it was a good start. We can build on that, and we can also encourage the political parties, to take part and to participate in the process. And of course, I hope, many of our citizens would be drawn to participate in electoral process, in upcoming elections.
The board chair also expressed her gratitude to all actors and development partners for making a successful election happen. She branded this round of election a historic for being conducted amid complicated situations in the country, despite some irregularities.
Actually, at times, it was easier for the international to get accreditation than for civil society actors. But this time around, about 40,000 local observers were able to check us and to see, the process. And as I said, I can say the same about political parties and media outlets and other stakeholders.
It is to be recalled that the ruling Prosperity Party won 410 cities out of the 484 contested in the House of People's Representative.
For thousands of years, the peoples of the Horn of Africa have revered the mighty Nile. Its spiritual significance to these lands has been enshrined in poetry, music, and spoken word for time immemorial. And in a land that is holy to Christians and Muslims and followers of many faiths, these waters hold a place in the hearts of millions of Africans. And in all this time, the waters have flowed with only a dream of being able to harness and help bring millions of women, children, and men out from darkness. Today, a new dawn is upon us, when a continent can rejoice in unison. The grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam stands as a beacon of hope for all Africans. The use of a hydroelectric dam which does not consume the water, but rather allows it to continue its flow to our brothers and sisters in Sudan and Egypt, will finally allow the lights to turn on in all of the African Nile Basin countries. Since the dawn of time, Ethiopia, who contributes 80% plus of the waters, has used 0%. Today, more than 60% of Ethiopians do not have access to basic electricity. Ethiopia has watched as her soil and minerals be swept away to irrigate the cotton farms of Egypt, while her mothers still carry firewood upon their backs and sit in darkness. The time for a fair and equitable share of the Nile is now. The time for all 11 African nations who feed the Nile to share in its life-giving potential is now. This is truly a dam of inclusivity, of kindness, and of shared prosperity. Light, energy, education, food security, and a chance for prosperity for millions. This is Africa's dam. This is our dam. This is my dam.
Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy, Sleshi Bekele, expresses hope that Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt will reach an agreement soon through the AU-led negotiations. Talking to ETV English, the minister said his government is expecting the AU chair to summon the three countries to resume talks anytime soon. We more on this story.
Though it was in the best interest of Egypt and Sudan to take the issue of the GERD to the UN Security Council, people who closely followed the deliberation of the Council came into a conclusion that the platform was an opportunity to Ethiopia to clarify confusions about its mega dam. Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy, Sleshi Bekele, who made a compelling speech on the session of the Council, believes that Ethiopia has made its point during the session to let members of the Council know the truth. The minister has also expressed hope that the three countries will strike a deal through AU-led negotiations.
The issue is not really a security threat, it's a water resource development project that is hugely beneficial for the downstream countries as well. It doesn't cause any harm, any threat. So we went there and explained that. I think most of the Security Council members have understood that, the situation. So the core of the issue is that by subsidiarity principle, this thing should be handled at African Union level, if at all. If it is above the three countries, African Union should facilitate. We used to facilitate ourselves, by rotating chair. Now, African Union can facilitate, and we continue negotiation and finalize negotiation as soon as possible. Ethiopia is always ready and appearing to every meeting with alternative proposals.
Following the UNSC session, the two riparian countries have shown a tendency to come back to the negotiation table under the chairmanship of the African Union, said Sleshi, adding that his country is waiting for a call from the AU chair to resume talks.
At the end of the day, what I heard from the statements, to go back to the African Union
So that's what we are trying to do. We expect that the AU chair will call the three parties and restart the negotiation in good faith. Good faith negotiation is the only way out for this problem.
Things are now becoming clear that the AU-led negotiation is the best way to break the deadlock between the three countries. Egypt Independent Wednesday reported that the US believes the African Union is the most appropriate institution to deal with the GERD crisis, quoting Samuel Warburg, regional spokesman for the US State Department, as saying, diplomatic activities pertaining to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam should focus more on African countries. Political science and international relations Professor Jacob Arsano told Ethiopian news agency that Ethiopia is working to utilize its water resources based on knowledge and skill. The country is also doing its part to change the centuries-old unfair use of the Nile water resources, he added. Noting Ethiopia's firm position on seeking African solutions to African problems, he recalled that Egypt and Sudan had, on the other hand, tried to tack the issue of the GERD to impertinent countries. The professor stated the decision of the UN Security Council returning the issue of the dam to the African Union mediation was right. Ministry of Science and Higher Education says it's working to ensure knowledge-driven economy in Ethiopia. The ministry held its first higher education and industrial linkage event aiming to create a conducive environment for the development of digital economy in Ethiopia, among other things. The event, which brought together several stakeholders in the sector, is said to be important in building digital transformation in the country.
Actually, today's ceremony is really very critical for our country, and I mean to have a common understanding about the role of standard. Actually, this my topic was for today's session, like the role of standard for education, training, and the overall technology transfer as a nation. So, what's the role of standard really? I mean, to understand and to have a common understanding on standards. The first and the second and the third, industrial revolution already passed. Now we are in a fourth industrial revolution. So we need to have, this low knowledge-based economy. So we need to lead our industrialization, our agricultural system, the whole infrastructure, and the whole, economic system, and all economic operators need to understand, the role of digitization. This is, the timely, topic that we need to understand and we need to discuss.
It was also indicated that a national transformation agenda has been formulated to bring about sustainable development in Ethiopia. Agriculture, manufacturing and transport sectors will be focus areas of engagement according to the development plan.
Yeah, the whole idea of the motto for this conference, knowledge-driven economy. Economies evolve and they grow, but they don't grow on their own, and there has to be an engine behind them driving this whole economy. And we believe discoveries in sciences and new systems and methods that come from technology, innovative things, as we've seen it in other countries, drives the true economy. The service economy grew out of the technology in recent years. So we're very cognizant of what the West is doing, the United States. I happen to have come from the United States. And we know what benefit science discoveries bring. And all of our utilities and all that we use, practical things, are all products of research and technology. So we think, instead of becoming only consumers of benefits that come from other countries, that we also have the know-how and we have the skills and the ability and the human resources, really, to be able to contribute not only to ourselves, even to the global development.
ልክ እዚህ ሰዎች ሲደርሱ ጦርነትን ያሸነፈ ያህል ነው ስሜት የሚሰማቸው በጣም በከፍተኛ ሁኔታ ድከሙም ምኑም ረስተውት ያሸናፊነት ስሜት የሚሰማቸው ቦታ ነው።
Welcome back, you're watching this News Hour. The Portuguese former diplomat Ana Gomes has announced the brutality of the terrorist TPLF, describing it as terrible. She reiterated solidarity with Ethiopians, pledging unwavering support to endeavors of the nation for peace, democracy, and genuine development. Ana Maria Rosa Martinez Gomes is a Portuguese former diplomat and politician of the Socialist Party. She is also a member of Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament of the Party of European Socialists.